I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Welcome back, everybody. I am here at the Rainier Club once again. Shout out to Carrie and Jen who helped me get this spot. For those that don't know, it is a membership club, and they have a bar on site. They have places to co-work. You can rent and do private events, which I've done before, and it's right here on 4th downtown. So thank you again to Rainier Club for letting us record here. I don't have a ton of updates on my life. This past weekend, I was helping with what's called the Torchlight Parade and Torchlight 5K. So Seafair puts those events on, and it used to be on 4th Ave, and they moved it down to the waterfront. So it was kind of their first 5K on the waterfront, first time doing it, the parade down there. And for those that don't remember, I'm contracting with Seafair, so I was down there helping out. It was a lot of fun. And this episode will come out Sunday, which is the Sunday of Seafair. So next episode, I'll have to give a recap of how it all went. But yeah, that's it for me. So I'm going to introduce my guest, and it is Tess Wakasugi-Don, principal at GLY Construction. Hi, Tess.
Hi. Thank you for having me on here.
I'm so excited. I know. So we kind of interacted a little bit when you were a 40 under 40 for PSBJ a couple years ago, right?
Yes.
Yes. I know. Glad to have you back. And you haven't been to Rainier Club, you said?
No, this is my first time. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here. A little bit about you. You started as an intern with GLY and worked your way all the way up to principal, which is, for those that don't know, that's kind of the highest position at a construction company.
Yeah, correct. It's ownership level.
Ownership. Okay. And you've been there 20 years if you include that internship. And you're also the President Elect of NAIOP, which is a professional CRE organization. And you're on the board of Seattle Children's Foundation. And you work with ACE. You're on the ACE Mentor Board, which is Architecture, Construction, and Engineering. And that's mentoring high schoolers, right? Correct.
Yeah.
With the goal of getting a little bit of diversity and more people interested in this world, right?
In this industry. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about how you got into construction. I think it's no secret that that's not a common place it's typically more male-dominated field, right?
Yeah, correct. Long story short, I took a class in high school, a graphics design class, and my teacher actually encouraged me to look into interior design. So I actually started out as an interior design major. Okay. And so that's how I picked Washington State University to go to school. It was my mom, shout out to my mom, who made the recommendation to, hey, check out the construction management program, which I didn't even know was a major or even a profession. I think you see it all around, but I think unless you have someone in the industry, it's relatively unknown. At that time, 20 years ago, or I guess more than that, 24 years ago. And so I met with the program head, and he got me into an intro class, and I loved it. It was great. And then I had the opportunity to intern with GLY Construction between my junior and senior year of college. I don't recommend that. I was doing a 5-year program in 4 years, so I had summer school after my freshman and sophomore year. So I wasn't able to get an internship between then. And then was fortunate after that, really loving it. I know I woke up my first day of my internship, and I was like, oh no, what if I just worked really hard to get done in 4 years, and what if I don't like this? But luckily, my first day was amazing, and I was really excited about it. And at the end of my internship, I was given a full-time offer. So, it's been the only company I've known and grown up in.
Which is kind of uncommon, I feel like, for the millennial.
Yes, I definitely think it's different for our generation. Yeah. My parents were both at their companies for most of their career, and that was actually one of the things they really liked when they met people I worked with at the company during a summer picnic, and everyone had been there 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. And
says a lot about the company, for sure.
It does, yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite part of construction? Like you said, you love it, but is there like one thing that kind of keeps you so excited about this industry?
Oh, having the ability to have like real positive impact in my community. I'm from here. I grew up here, born and raised. And so working on projects that support our community, like hospitals, life science, our civic projects, education. And so that's what really gets me excited.
You really get to see your work come to fruition, right? Like you get to work on this big project and then see the school. Because I think a lot of other professions and industries, you're working on like a PowerPoint or I don't know,
Yeah,
something that you don't really get to
or
see
one
other people.
part of a laptop. And I think that's been really fun. I have 3 boys. And I can drive by projects and say, I was pregnant with you on this project. You were born on this project.
Yeah.
You were born on this project. And so my husband's in the industry, so we have kind of this longstanding rivalry. I still have it, though I think he has a larger project coming up. But
I love that.
The who has the biggest project, mom or dad?
Yeah.
And it's been mom, because my most recent project, we had 3 tower cranes. So
my goodness.
I get to hold that
Yes. Yeah.
that title for a little bit longer. But yeah, it's been great to show my boys like, hey, this is what your mom does.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
That's awesome. My only experience, I'm excited to have you on. We're going to talk a lot about the construction industry, which I admittedly do not know a lot about. My only reference is I worked for what's called a DMC, Destination Management Company.
Okay.
And that's in the events industry. And it was kind of hard to explain to people like what we did. And I would always say, we're like a general contractor for events. So you would come to us.
Yep. And you get vendors.
Exactly. So we would be their main point of contact.
Yep.
They would pay us, but we would subcontract with, our entertainers, our AV, our transportation, our staff, whatever, like all that kind of stuff. So that's my only way to relate. But we're going to get into it. So we're going to do 4 things today. The first one, I've done this before, but there's no article connected to it, but we're going to talk to Tess just about the construction industry and kind of the state of the industry and what's going on. And then we'll get into Pier 58 open down on the waterfront. Speaking of waterfront. Our third story is that some contractors are suing Microsoft for some alleged unpaid work. And our last story is that Convoy, a Seattle company, they sell again. So let's get into it. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. All right, let's talk about construction. So you've been in this industry a long time, as we mentioned. How, big picture, how would you say it's changed over the years?
For me, I think in the 20 years I've been doing this, technology has definitely been a major factor. And I know we'll touch a little bit about that towards the end. We have 3D modeling. And so for those who are new, like our clients who are building their first project or are not as familiar with the industry, you can visualize what this looks like and how we plan and coordinate our work. If you're on a school campus, how do you delineate between public and the construction area? So these tools that we have now are so powerful in being able to show versus describe of
Definitely.
how we're approaching items. Something on a more personal level for me is just seeing more women in the industry.
Okay.
Over the last 20 years has been amazing to see the amount of women coming in at the start. I think there's great opportunity still, though, in retaining those women, and also seeing women in leadership positions, especially on the operations side, is what I would categorize myself as a project engineer, project manager. And so seeing those women in the leadership positions. I will say one thing that hasn't changed in the 20 years that I've been doing this is the relationship and partnership focus. Our industry is pretty small. It's kind of the 6 degrees of separation, the Kevin Bacon rule. And, that was one of the reasons I was so drawn to GLY is the type of work they were doing, private negotiated work with repeat clients. Like 85% of their clients, they've done at least 3 or more projects with when I started, 20 years ago, which speaks a lot. And so working early with our trade partners, because those are the experts in their systems of problem solving of hey, this is the design intent and this is what we want, but this is how we'll actually build it. And this is the most cost-effective way to do it. So
we had a sales side of our department, organization and ops side, and we always said, what is it? Sell the dream, operate the nightmare, or something like that. Where sales would be totally, we totally can do this.
We can totally do that.
Yeah, we'll have aerialist flying over a pool and then ops is what? So I get that. But tell me a little bit more about how it's changed over the years in terms of statistics of the business itself. So I know we interviewed a commercial real estate person, and that's no secret that commercial real estate has gone down, especially since COVID. Do you feel like construction is mirroring that just with probably less commercial real estate projects, or do you feel like you're making up for it in other ways? How does construction kind of relate to the ebb and flow of CRE? Yeah,
I would say construction is made up of various market sectors. And so commercial real estate is one component. You could say that, corporate office, industrial, multifamily would fall under commercial real estate. But I would say right now we're probably seeing there is less permits going in for this upcoming year. So more projects are completing, but less new projects are starting up. But there's still projects going on the multifamily front, industrial, transit, and the
we know about transit.
Yeah,
I think everybody right now is feeling
that pain
construction. That is
of transit. And then the public infrastructure, which is that utilities as well as transit. So though the permits are declining for filings for this year, there are still projects that are going on. And I think at the last DSA State of Downtown, John Schultz stated that Seattle is third amongst the 10 peer U.S. cities where construction projects are currently underway. So still not bad.
Okay.
Right?
Not bad, yeah, if you compare to other cities. Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the I-5 corridor, Sound Transit, the light rail, just like any other market or any other industry, our cycles are cyclical. So this is either the third or fourth cycle I've been through in my career. And so construction tends to lag about 2 years because design takes, when a client comes and says, hey, I want to get this project started, there's going to be a year to year and a half, depending on the size of design and or permitting before we'll actually feel that implication of the rise of construction. But there's also a plus side. It usually takes 2 years for us to feel it because we have projects going on.
Yeah. And we were talking about kind of your different client list, whether you lean more heavily on the private side or the public side. Because I was saying, there might be less offices, but there's still like schools and other types of things being built. How has that portfolio changed for you? Yeah,
definitely something that as now a principal shareholder, we're being very more intentional in diversifying our project and client portfolio just so that it just helps ease the cyclical cycle. Now, where we are probably prominently 90% private when I started negotiated, we are down to about 75 private negotiated and about 25% public work. On the public work sector, we're really focusing in on the design build opportunities and the GCCM opportunities. So that allows us to get engaged and work very similar to the private negotiated work. So,
is design build like you start from the beginning and you help them design?
Yeah, we bring on a design build partner.
Oh, okay.
There's a few different ways that you can go about that. I pursued a project out in Snoqualmie where they actually brought the GC on first, the general contractor first, and then we would help working with the owner's rep and the clients on picking a design team partner. Design build can also be where you partner up together with a design firm and you pursue a project.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I have one more question on this, and we'll keep going with our articles. I want to know, what, if you have an answer, what it's like building in Seattle compared to other cities. I know you mentioned that stat from John, but is there something different about Seattle whether that's better or worse? If it's our permitting process or the density of our city or the people, how does that compare from what you've experienced?
Looking outward from Seattle, there's multiple pressures, I think, that are factoring into building in this area. One is we just have very high construction costs. There's tighter financing, and that's more specific to, the private development.
Yeah.
And then also, we do have a more complex permitting process. We hear from clients that build elsewhere, like in Texas, we can do, this, and it's pretty quick permitting process. And I think one of your last guests is building out in Idaho and spoke to how different it is versus Seattle. So those are the things.
He's been waiting like a year or 9 months or something to do something on his patio, whereas he could just do it right away in Idaho, which is frustrating.
And I know SDCI is working through those processes. And I think that's where the opportunity lies, is working with the jurisdictions in partnership to understand kind of what those challenges are, not only at the large development scale, but also those, local family partners that are looking to develop a project and or open a new shop, and trying to make that process a little bit different because it's not a one size fits all, I think. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on to our next article, which is about Pier 58. So it's the last major piece of that big waterfront project that we've talked about. It's over $800 million project. And it finally opened. It opened last Friday, July 25th. And as I mentioned, the Torchlight Parade was the 26th. So we were on the team, and you and I will talk about the timelines and stuff. But we wanted to use 58, but we didn't know if it was going to be open in time for this parade. And so it was kind of just like, we hope it will. And if not, I mean, we didn't have a ton. We ended up doing like dueling pianos out there and stuff. I'm so glad it was open for it. But we just weren't sure. So it opened. It's got a huge playground and art. And overall, it's going to be 50,000 square feet of new space. It's got this big, tall, jellyfish-looking playground.
Oh, see, I interpreted that as an octopus. But maybe
the article said jellyfish.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's a creature with tentacles.
Yeah, one of those things. They've got all-gender bathrooms, which I feel like we were kind of lacking on the waterfront of just bathroom facilities in general. And it took 3 years of construction, this particular area. So that's kind of what the article is about. My initial reaction, it is very cool. But I saw that jellyfish playground and I was like, that looks dangerous. It's tall. It's like 25 feet tall.
Oh, see, I didn't know it's that tall.
Yeah. And I hung out with my friend's daughter, and I'm not around kids like ever. And now I was just like, oh my God, she's going to fall in this playground. She's going to slip. And like, I just get so worried. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm too anxious to have a child. For you, Tess, any initial reactions just from a construction perspective on whether that's this 58 or the entire waterfront park?
Oh, I think for me in the construction viewpoint, I think what got me really excited about this article was just the project completion, which is just such a major milestone in any construction project. Having a project of this scale and this importance to the city and the waterfront, I think is a huge celebration. Coordinating, for example, that structure, that play structure, how, was an artist involved. And so working with them, and I've worked on projects where we've incorporated art into the project, and all the things like the structural attachments. How do you support it? How do you design it? What's the intent? Is it touch feel? Is it to actually get played on? So working through all of that coordination and thinking about that with the design team partners, as well as our trade partners, of actually how do we build it and put it in. And then also just, working on the shoreline, that just comes with additional layers of complexity and scale, and it being very a prominent project and component to this full waterfront redevelopment, ahead of all of these big events coming up soon. Those are all the fun things like to think about and hear from those team members that worked on that project.
Well, speaking of working with the city on some cool projects, I saw an article that GLY was selected to work with the city for the monorail reconfiguration, which that wasn't really on my radar.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on how you got that and what that project's all about?
Yeah, that was, again, through relationships that people at my organization had with people working with the monorail group. And the opportunity came up. I believe that was a GCCM project. So again, an alternate delivery method other than the hard bid, which is kind of the low number gets the job.
What's a GCCM?
General Contractor Construction Management Agreement. And so you work as kind of as the GC, but also as the construction manager in terms of
both. Okay.
Yeah. So you work again with the collaborative, getting engaged early, help them problem solve in the terms of what we call means and methods of like how you actually go about building it, and making sure those components are factored into the design. So
what's the monorail reconfiguration?
It's for ADA. It's to incorporate ADA.
Oh, really? Cool.
And so the plan is we are going to be working towards starting that, I believe, after the FIFA.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's either you have to get it done in time for FIFA.
Or they're just saying, it's okay, we'll pause. We'll wait till afterwards.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see, one more question on this. I guess besides the monorail, any other project that we should know about that you're working on?
Yeah, we just started, we will start at the end of August, so next month, Mary's Place in Burien.
Okay, we just had Mary's Place on.
I know. I love Dominique.
She's awesome.
So I worked on their project in the Denny Triangle area on three projects, 2 temporary shelters, as well as their permanent home in the Amazon campus. And had the opportunity to support their project down in Burien. So they have property down there that they're actually redeveloping.
Is it going to be like another shelter?
It is. Okay. Yeah, it's another shelter. So they took that property as is. I think it was an assisted facility living building that they took, or they acquired or bought. And now that just got demoed last month, and it's in partnership with Mercy Housing. And so they'll have affordable housing on the same site. So we will actually start construction. We'll mobilize at the end of the month and provide a new shelter that's more efficient and sustainable, and will support 200 family members. It's been a great project that we won 2 years ago and was helping support the pre-construction process.
It's interesting to know the timelines of things. I know we're going to get into that a little bit, but like that you won this 2 years ago and it hasn't started yet. Like just that how much work goes into it ahead of time.
That early coordination of this is how we would like to sequence the work. This is the most efficient structural system type, being what is holding up the building. So is it concrete? Is it steel? Is it wood framing? What are the pluses and deltas within each system? Because with wood framing, you have much more limitations in terms of how you can come back and remodify the space. You know, ideally, there will be a time where, you know, Mary's Place is no longer needed, right? Because everyone is housed. And so what's a way to look at converting that asset into something different, and how can that play? And so those are the conversations and the what we help support, so Mary's Place can make an informed decision, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about like, how can we make this a building that can be used for something else in the future?
Yeah, I'm working on that. And then we just started a project for a school district to renovate their existing pool and incorporate some, again, ADA into the locker rooms and refresh their locker and shower rooms, change kind of the arrival at the reception area, and then create a viewing area on the main floor to help support those that are less mobile, that can't go up to the second floor to view.
What a mix of things that you're working on.
Yeah, so that's like one of my first public, because it's with the school district. Yeah. And so that's one of my first public projects. So it was a design build project. So we partnered with an architect firm. Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, we're going to move on to our third article, which is Contractors suing Microsoft. There's two companies and there's two separate lawsuits. So it's Roshman Steel and Glass, and also the concrete contractor SAK Builders. They're both arguing separately that Skanska and Balfour Beatty owe them millions. So Skanska and Balfour Beatty combined to do this project for Microsoft. And they're saying that they owe them millions of dollars for uncompensated cost and unpaid work. So the Microsoft campus refresh was over in Redmond, and it still remains delayed, which is interesting. There's no current timeline for completion. But Roshman was saying that due to COVID and the Ukraine war, 'cause this is back in 2020, that they had all these delays. And then in 2024, Skanska and Balfour were like, you got to get off this project. We're done with you. And they had somebody else kind of step in. So Roshman is saying, you owe me $10 million, which is high.
Yeah, not a small amount.
Not a small amount. And Skanska is saying, no, you didn't properly notify us of what was going on. And so then they countersue. So it's getting dramatic. And then the SAK Builders, they're suing for $2 million. Wasn't a lot of information in the article on details of their lawsuit, but kind of sounds in similar vein. So first of all, I just feel like it's a running joke with any construction project. And anybody that's redone their house always says this, like, I mean, it'll be done in September, but, you know, that means December. So, Tess, I want to hear from you.
I have not heard that.
What, you haven't? I feel like it's always like, well, so I'm booking an event at a new venue, and we were going to plan for one date. And then she's like, oh, I just talked to my general contractor. It's actually not going to be ready by that date. We're going to have to push it to this date. And I was like, no, I get it. Because that's just like how it goes. So tell me why construction is so unpredictable on their timeline. Why is it always later than we think?
I will say from my experience, I haven't.
Tess is like, my projects aren't late.
Yeah. From my experience, I haven't had to have those types of conversations.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think one thing that for those who are not familiar with the construction industry, it is a very different industry. It's not a commodity industry. And so I think, especially when we get new clients that maybe work in the realm of the commodity, or like, hey, there's a schedule, there's a cost, you do more, you get less cost. How come that does not translate to construction? And it's because every project is different. Every project is unique. There's different constraints. You could have a project in downtown Seattle where you have a very tight site, so access is very limited. There's scheduling that has to go in incorporate into that. in the city of Bellevue during the holidays, there's a moratorium. And so knowing and being familiar with each jurisdiction and how they go about in terms of their work hours and what that process looks like in terms of a noise variance permit or you're working outside the work hours. How do you go about requesting a longer shift?
Wow, a lot goes into that.
I mean, there's a ton. And then for us being involved so early on, we work and develop a schedule, understanding where the design team is at with the design, understanding what major milestones that the owner needs to be aware of, the clients to make decisions.
Well, it's basic project management, right?
Exactly.
But this is why I have such a hard time understanding why things get late because, I know it's not the same, but for events, we do the same thing. We plan like maybe a year out and we have a work back schedule. So we know by March we need to have
We call that in construction pull planning.
I'm going to start using that. What is it? Pull?
Pull, P-U-L-L, pull planning.
I'm going to bring that up in my next meeting.
Back from the last,
hey guys, let's look at our pull planning.
Yeah.
I mean, by March you need this, by April you need this, and you anticipate delay. For me, when we're ordering stuff, we anticipate the delays for the ordering. So I feel like I know shit goes wrong when you're planning stuff, but you kind of, I guess, account for that. And so for me, you have to be done by the event date. I know you can push it out a little bit, but yeah, that's why I have a hard time understanding, like, wouldn't we project manage and kind of account for some of these
and I would say, in the news, you definitely hear of the outliers, the exceptions, but no one ever writes an article like this finished on time, or this actually finished ahead of schedule, or this finished under budget. And so I think that is more the norm, I would say, in our industry.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And so again, it's that early communication and, also being able to say, with our design team partners, what do you need to continue moving forward with design? Oh, well, we need direction from the client on this and this, and just clearly saying, okay, these are the big milestones that need to happen. These are the times that we need to buy out the work. And so that's what we go out to bid. And so we go to a competitive bid process out to, like, for example, elevators. We'll go to 3 to 5 different manufacturers and say, hey, this is the building, this is the purpose, this is the function. You'll usually have a BOD, which is a basis of design. So they can't just make assumptions and bid different systems. And then you come back and say, okay, we know this is a 20-week lead time. Shop drawings are 12 weeks. And that's product information and looking at loads and calcs for elevators, for example.
Yeah.
And then we have to contract, we have to have the funds available from you, the client. And so working back and then establishing a timeline.
Well, okay, so this article talks about subcontractors. Is there anything you want to kind of add to this article? And, like, have you had to fire somebody mid-project? How many subcontractors are you typically using in a project?
Yeah, for me, the various projects I've worked on, I've worked on hundreds of millions of dollars project to one that was $100,000. To actually a $70,000 project. And so it just depends on the scope. And so typically I would say in those examples, it was like 2 trade partners that we worked with you could go up to 60 on a ground up new development project. And I would say for me, what I've enjoyed and learned a lot is from my trade partners, because those people are the experts in their system. And I remember working with a rebar, which is the metal that goes into concrete, right, to make it strong. Working with their foreman and going out and just asking questions. Well, why do you do it like this? How do you sequence your work? And just learning from them, because I felt knowing that information, I could be a better project manager, better project engineer. So
typically AV in my world is male dominated, and I've had a lot of great AV partners. Of course, there have been times where I've felt that they can be a little condescending, especially being a woman. And so I've taken it upon myself to try and learn a lot. I'm like, I know what an XLR cable is, man.
Yeah.
So did you feel that you had to work hard to earn the respect of those subcontractors on site? Like, do you feel like that is something that came up for you or no?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe this was more internally driven than my experience, but I'm not very tall. I know
Yeah.
this is a podcast,
Yeah.
so you can't
Yeah, that's
can't
true.
see me, and we'll be sitting down when
Yeah.
we with our photos, so you won't be able to see. I'm very small stature,
Mhm.
and so it can be intimidating when you're out there working with 10 men. I would
Mhm.
say mostly it's been, especially at the craft level, and saying, hey, by the way, you're missing a rebar here, here, and here. Can you put that in? But I know you need to slide it under this. So establishing that trust early on in communication, again, it comes back to communication, but establishing that partnership in that I'm going to work my tail off for you to get you the answers you need. Yeah, when you say, hey, I know this is going to be hard. I don't want to ask this, but I have to ask that, we have to do this, this, and this because I walked the engineer of record. Can you do it? They'll say, yeah, I will do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just reciprocal in terms of when they come to me, I'm going to make your job easier.
So you feel like you've built the relationships that, and the respect, and the mutual respect.
And it is a small industry, so people do chat and talk. And so, I think that those types of partnerships are so important because that's actually what makes a project. Because we subcontract out probably 75% of our work. I mean, we self-perform work, but we bring on partners that we've worked with in the past that we know will succeed, and we want them to succeed as well. And so, again, that's back to this collaborative.
Like we're all trying to win. We're on the same team here.
We're in the same boat.
Yeah, for reals. All right, our last article is about Convoy. So Convoy is kind of an interesting Seattle company, if you haven't heard of them. They were once one of Seattle's most valuable startups, hitting close to $4 billion.
I know, I saw that. I was very surprised. I
billion.
wasn't as familiar with them.
Yeah, and that was in 2022.
Yeah.
So my understanding of it is it's sort of similar to Uber, but this is for drivers.
Trucking, freighting.
Yes, thank you. For freight drivers. And so they have this big truck, and a lot of times they'd go to, let's say, Colorado, drop off all this freight, and they would come back to Seattle with an empty truck.
Mm-hmm.
And so their logic was, what if there's a way that somebody that maybe they needed to transfer something from Colorado to Seattle, they could be like, oh, hey, here's an empty truck coming on Tuesday. Let's use that one. And so there was this app that people could use. To me, genius. I don't understand fully why it collapsed. It collapsed the article says freight recession and less investors and rising costs. That I want to know more. I'm like,
I thought that was different too, because that's how we get materials.
Yeah.
And when they come overseas, they usually come on a boat. You can air freight them, but there's usually a cost associated with that. But I was a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I want to know what was the business model?
Are people buying less? Are we making less?
Are we making
just
less? Not run well? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are the questions I have. Anyway, so they collapse and they sell to a San Francisco company called Flexport. And they keep it for 2 years. And the article that just came out is that Flexport just sold it again, it got sold again to DAT Freight and Analytics. And then I looked into kind of the co-founders. So the co-founders are Dan Lewis and I forgot the other guy's name. But Dan Lewis originally went to the Flexport team when the Flexport bought them. Yeah. And then he eventually was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to Microsoft.
Yeah.
The other co-founder joined another logistics company over in Florida, and he's in some sort of leadership role over there. So the lesson I feel is you can run your company into a ground and then you'll both still work in C-suite in other companies. That was the one I got. Because if you're going through
light bulb.
I was like, if you're going through something terrible, if you're sitting here listening and you're like, I just messed something up totally at my company, just remember you can still be a leader in another company. I'm trying to be positive here.
Yes.
But that's also, I'm assuming that they had something to do with the downfall. Okay, so how has technology, this Convoy is obviously a tech company, but how has technology changed over the years for construction? I know you answered a little bit at the top, but if anything you want to add to that?
Oh, yeah. The things that I wanted to highlight, I think, are, a lot of contractors and design firms are using Revit, which is a 3D modeling software.
Revit. Okay, cool.
Revit. There's a SketchUp as a free version. I think they might be acquired by AutoCAD, but I'm not 100% sure. But we used, that's one we really encourage our A students to utilize if they can't get Revit on their machines. But Revit is a 3D modeling system that in 2008, I took my first training class. And then I think in 2010 was when I actually utilized it. And so what it does, it's so powerful in the sense that because we're still doing hard paper copies of drawings because of the legal issues associated with a file that can always be updated and changed. So still contracts are still tied to actual document sets, architecturals and structurals. And so we take those documents and then I would model actually the components from that. And so it provides an opportunity to identify if there's any conflicts between, like, say, the structural documents and the architectural documents. But it also then incorporates what we shop drawings from our trade partners that actually will show different components of their systems that we may either have to install or coordinate with other scopes of work. So elevators, again, for example, there's structural components that need to be installed. So the rails of the elevator attached at the right spots, and we have right columns there. And so being able to model that and ahead of time and coordinate it and order the right sizes, because we've got the real forces now of those rails. And the structural engineer can say, yes, you need a HSS, which is a tube steel, like 2x6 back there, a 1/4 inches thick. And so that helps bring all of this data into one document for us, especially when we self-perform our concrete work. So we come in, we compile all the information in this one document that we hand to the field to actually install. So they're not having to look at structural drawings. They're not having to flip through architectural, and they're not having to look at then shop drawings that could be a whole other set of documents. With that, we do what we call as MEPF clash detection. And so MEPF is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection systems. And so when I started, you plotted everything on a drawing, and then every system had a different color. And then if there was any overlap of the systems, you circled it. And then we said, okay, what elevation are you at? What elevation are you at? Now we do that in 3D. And so we can run it through a software that can detect all of these. So it's not someone looking through the drawings and trying to identify, oh, here's a clash. It's a system. It's a computer system that will review it and clash it and say, here are the 50 clashes. And then you can look at them and say, really, of the 50, there's actually only 20 that are real ones that we need to go through and say, okay, sprinkler, you're coming at this elevation. Electrical, you need to come up and over. And so you can work through all of that versus, I'm sure you've seen the pictures of bad construction projects where like a stair leads to nowhere or like there's a mechanical HVAC duct and someone drilled holes through it to put a sprinkler line. And so it eliminates any of that, which is costly because you have to rework and can impact schedule. If we were to rebuild this room here, we would Faro scan. And so that actually takes the existing space, brings it into model so you can validate, I assume this here because of the documents we were given from the owner of the building. And they can say like, and it's like, actually, no, that column is actually 2 feet over than where it's supposed to be. And so we can I help work with the design team that we had a main medium pressure duct that you can't move. And they had acoustical, they had offices where acoustics was very important to them. And so we relocated those even before we started construction so that we avoided that medium pressure duct work.
Well, one more question on this and we'll close out. But you mentioned at the top that you are a part owner of GLY, right?
I am. I'm one of 12, so I have 11 partners.
Okay. So, kind of referring back to the article of Convoy, selling and selling again, what kind of shifts when you become from an employee or even a principal to owner? Like, how is being an owner slightly different? How do you approach your decisions in your day differently being an owner of a company?
Oh man, this is the one question I was like really racking my head. Like, how have I changed?
Maybe it doesn't change you. Maybe you're just like, I do the best I can, whether I'm an owner or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was looking at is like kind of the mindset change and shift of, I'm leading a company versus I'm managing a project or executing work. So that was one thing that has changed for me and how I approach my day, how I approach my interactions with my team, internally within our different departments and as well as with our clients. I think the leadership is a little bit different in that I cannot reinforce to my project teams because I have multiple teams that have different projects going on and working with different clients. And I can't emphasize to them enough, like, I'm here to support you. So you let me know where I can help reinforce something. If I need to do outreach to a client, if I need to do outreach to a trade partner saying, hey, we're really struggling with this. Can we meet? Because title does have some influence. And I learned that very early in my career. Title does have some influence. So I want to leverage that to support my teams. I think the business development too side of, I'm responsible for feeding the machine, for bringing in projects to ensure that our company is staying busy and we are
a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And that has been one that I think for me, when I had the opportunity to become an owner, was very intimidating. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a coworker, and she said, why not shift it into that's what drives you? Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's mind-blowing. Like, yeah, I don't know why. And so that has again, back to that mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the last one is the responsibility. There's risk in this role. I want to make sure that I'm doing my part as a partner for my partners, as well as my team and the employees at my company, and all that entails and responsibility that has. That's another level up.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
But trying to use that again as something that drives me versus intimidates me or makes me anxious. So,
yeah. I was going to ask to give us some advice of how to get motivated and for our listeners, but I feel like you kind of said it there of what kind of scares you. Instead of using that and feeling intimidated, use that to drive you forward. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Perfect. Tess, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot about the construction industry. And once again, I want to give a shout out to the Rainier Club for hosting us. They are on 4th Avenue, a membership-based club. Look them up. And thanks again, Tess.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is my first podcast, and I've had a lot of fun. So.
You did great. You did great.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. This has been The Weekly, with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.